Welcome everybody. I hope you are back to your seat. We are starting with the next session from Doe Stall, the topic being redefining ownership in the gray zones. Over to you, Doe.
Or
I
I
request you
do.
to introduce yourself and start with the presentation. Thank you very much.
So yeah, I never know how to introduce myself. So my name is Dov. I'm an agile coach. I've been an agile coach for a long time, longer than I can count, I think. So um, I guess 15 years, something like that. Um, and I'm really interested as an agile coach to exploring all of the non-process things, not Scrum and not Kanban and not all of the processes that we know so well and know how to use, but more exploring the mindset and understanding how we can understand the world better and through this impact the world better. Before I start, can you all do me a small favor? And if you can, turn your camera on for 10, 20 seconds, just so we see each other and we know who we all are. If you have the rights, I don't know if you have the rights. Hello, Misha. Anyone else? Ah, hi, I see. No?
Hello, Goyal
Hello.
here.
Hello, Prashant. Lovely to see you all. And this is, I think, one thing that we're missing in this era is this connection. I think that a lot of times, including in this talk, by the way, most people are mostly in a listening mode. They're not in a mode of conversation. They're in a mode of someone talks and most people are on the receiving end. So unfortunately, this talk will be more or less like that. But please feel free to interrupt me anytime you want to. Lovely. So only if you can mute yourself, it would be great because you have background noise. But feel free to unmute yourself and ask, interrupt whenever you want. And now let's go to what I wanted to talk about. So I tried to think of a topic that it's a concept that changed a lot the way I see the world, and it's about dichotomy. So I'll get to what dichotomy is, but first I'd love to share with you two poems from a book called Agile Tao, which is sort of a version of the book of Tao that was written thousands of years ago. And these two poems have relevance to what I'm going to talk about. So I'd love to read them with you. The first one is called Formless. So just lay back and enjoy. Really, these are poems that are to be consumed as delicacy. Formless, life has gone on forever, forever surpassing everywhere. Life became yourself. Of brimming chaos, outer darkness, and ceaseless change, nature made your cradle. As life is endless, mind is endless, and nature is endless. You are endless. You're formed of nature, nature of mind, mind of life, and life of the formless. So this is the first poem that I'd love to resonate with you while I'll present to you what I want. And the second one is called Collaboration. Agility builds collaboration, not competition. Feeds interdependence, not dependence. Empties people's mouths to fill their bellies. Softens their hearts to strengthen their bones. It controls politics by not delegating responsibility. Bureaucracy by not leaving decisions to managers. Inequity by not giving privileges to owners. Agility decentralizes ownership and leadership. So those who provide them can't exploit them. When no one can take advantage, harmony remains. And for me, these two poems talk about the fact that we're all one, the fact that the view that the boundaries between you and me are an illusion, or are more of a definition for an organization than a reality. That the best way to function is when we function as a whole and not as a set of individuals. And I think, especially in India, you can connect to this. Only, I think that, and this is something also that I saw in India, a lot of times we connect to this very easily when we are in our meditative space, and we let go of all of this when we enter the workplace. So when we enter the workplace, naturally we put on our dichotomic hierarchical view of the world. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what I mean by dichotomy. So if you don't know the concept of dichotomy is a very clear division of the world into two. So a question I often hear with the agile coaches, with scrum masters, with transformation leaders, whatever, is the organization agile or not? As if there are only two states for the organization to be in. Either something is agile or it's not agile. Is the product good or bad? Will we succeed or fail? All of these concepts are, the way I see it, misleading. So they're what's called false dichotomies. And by false dichotomy, I mean that when we define something, we have the tendency to define it either as black or white, while in reality, there's tons of shades of gray in the middle. And if we don't acknowledge that they are, we often block the chance of things to change. So let's say we say the organization is not agile, right? And to be agile, it has to do a lot of work. If we talk in this black or white view of the world, the organization probably will do nothing. But if we say the organization is here, here, and I think that it can move in a month somewhere to this zone, and in a month we can acknowledge that we moved 2 millimeters to the direction we want to go, and in a month later 3 millimeters more. After a year or two, you look back and you see that suddenly you are quite agile, quite wide, quite whatever you want it to be. So if you try to break down or to dissolve this idea that there are only two states to be, you might help yourself, your organization, your surrounding to progress in the direction that they want. You also help yourself and them see the nuances in the development that they have. Are there any questions so far? Okay, so I'll move on. And now I want to introduce you to a tool. So one of the first times that I came across this idea was by a tool created by Jorgen Appelo that perhaps some of you know. You can put in the chat if you do, called the Delegation Poker. And the Delegation Poker is a game that, or an activity that says that when I'm a manager and you're my subordinate, there are several levels of ownership that we can have. Either I tell you what to do, or I delegate completely, and these are the black and the white, or the black and the white. I don't know which color represents what. And then there are shades in between. So we can also, of course, agree together, right? So we can sit in a room and agree on something together. But there's also more nuances than that. And I'll go into these later. And I love this idea, only I had a problem with it. And the problem with it is that I don't like two things. One of them is that to share responsibility, one person has to be the manager. That we can't share responsibility in a team that has no hierarchy. And the second thing is that the way this activity is played, the manager and the other person both have to look through the eyes of the manager. So if the manager says, I tell you what to do, my manager says, I tell you what to do, and I tell my manager, you tell me what to do, and we both chose the same card, then we agree. So in fact, it forces me to look through the eyes of the manager and the manager to look through her eyes in this case. So I wanted to hack this game and I created my own version, which today I want to show you. And then to run you through how you can use this, this activity to help you, your team, your mates, you and your manager, you and your subordinates, whoever is around, to make decisions. And I call this the ownership spicer. So let's start by looking through how many states. So, and I still use the 7 states of Jorgen Appelo. How many? What is the meaning of the states of decision that that each person can have? So first of all, whatever my role is, I can decide alone. So if now um, I was invited to this conference, I was given a free hand to decide what I talk about, and not only this, so it's fully my decision, and you might want to be informed. So if you want to be informed, ask me. This is the first one. The second one is I have full decision. It's a small nuance, and I will sell it to you after I decide. So I already decided, my decision is taken, and now I'm trying to convince you that I made the right decision. But the decision is totally mine. And then when we move down, the next one is we'll consult and then I decide. So I will ask you, for in this example, what is the conference about? I will perhaps give you some ideas of what I can talk about. You will give me some ideas of what you want me to talk about. And then I decide, and it's my decision. The next one is that we will agree together. So we sit in a room, and until both of us say, this is the decision, we don't exit the room. And as you see, we slowly move down the scale of ownership that I have. And the last three are symmetrical to what we just saw. So I'll advise and then you decide means it's just like we'll consult before I decide on the other side. So I will advise you and then you can decide. But I insist that before you decide, you talk to me and I will advise you. Or if we go down one more scale, I will inquire after you decide. So decide, but know that you will have to explain to me why you decided what you decided. And the last one is I fully delegate. It's totally your decision. Just let me know if I need. Okay, so these are the 7 levels of ownership. And there's one more card that I added to the deck, which is, you know what? It's too complex. So perhaps for this talk, if we take this talk as an example, I can decide on the content, but I can't decide on the tool because I wanted to use another tool. No, the tool is given. So perhaps we split the decision into 2. 1, what is the talk about? 2, what platform do we use? And these 2 are now 2 separate things that we have to decide, and each of them might have a different level of ownership for each of us. Okay, so just one interesting thing that I want to show you about this set of cards is that if we are 2 people, and I'll talk later about what do we do when we're more than 2 people, but if we are 2 people, then a balanced ownership has the sum of 8. So if I say that I will decide alone and you say that you will fully delegate, 7 and 1 is 8. If we both say that we will agree together, then 4 by me and 4 by you is 8, etc. So I will sell after deciding, and you say I will inquire after you decide. So we are very balanced in the way that we make decisions. And this balance is important because if we have a sum of more than 8, it means that we probably will have some conflicts in our dialogue. The most extreme example, if we have 14, it means that I think I will decide alone, you think you will decide alone, and we will fight all the time. And in this case, we'll probably understand that we're fighting all the time because of this. But if I say I will decide alone, and you say that you'll advise, then maybe there will be a smell of conflict in the air, but it won't be as explicit as we can expect. So we can't sit and say, listen, I think our expectations are not that aligned. And the advantage of this activity that I will describe how we work with the tool like this in a second. But the advantage of this activity is that it makes our shared responsibility explicit, that it allows us to write a contract. And in fact, the first time that I used this tool like that was to write a contract between a project manager and a product owner. And don't ask me what these definitions mean. That used to argue all the time. And I had a session, a half-hour session with them in a room to define what is the working agreement, what are the things that they're responsible for together, and how do they share responsibility. And it was extremely useful because the next time they had a conflict, I got out this document that they wrote, and I said, the issue that you have a conflict now, where is it on this contract? And what did you agree? And do you want to change this agreement? And it ended the conflict very fast. So how do you use it? Really simple. So you sit two people in a room and you ask them a simple question. What things are owned in this room without specifying who does what? So I don't know, it can be talk to customers or schedule interviews. And it can be, what else? Can you put in the chat something, ideas? I don't know, decide, define priorities. And recruitment. Okay. And you get the idea. So you get a list of all of the things that are in the room, only you're not allowed to say who owns it. And now, once you have these all of these contracts, now you play a game. And in fact, here I chose Mural because in Mural you can have anonymous mode. So now the two people can each of them look at the cards. So let's say I own the blue ones, and whoever I play with owns the pink ones. And I say for this, I think I am for, yeah, which means I think that we will agree together. And the other person wrote 3, okay, which means I will advise you and you will decide. So now understand, when we see these two and they don't add up to 8, we understand how come we never get to this meeting that I expect to have where we decide together? Because the other person says, you invite me, I will just advise to you. And now we can renegotiate. And when we renegotiate, either I say, okay, and I say, okay, if you want me to advise to you, then I am 5. Or we can decide that both of us are 4. And then we go item by item, and we now write our agreement. And this is a very powerful, in my opinion, a way to sit down, formalize, and define responsibilities. And I want to bring you back to the beginning of our session. Define responsibilities not in a dichotomic way, because a lot of times we feel that we want to contribute, but the language that we have allows us only to say, this is yours or this is mine. And once we made the language wider so we can have levels of ownership, more nuanced ways of sharing this ownership, then our cooperation level is clearer while being very well defined. So this is how it works. And before I move on into more advanced ways of using this tool, I'd love to open the microphone to hear if you have any questions so far. And does it resonate? Does it solve any problems that you feel that you have at your workplace or not at your workplace? So now it's your turn.
Dove, what happens if there are three people collaborating? You mentioned
Wonderful.
in when two are collaborating, some of the card number 8 works. What happens when, say, three are collaborating or more?
It's a wonderful question, and that's exactly what I wanted to speak about next. Only I'd love to hear perhaps one more question, and then I'll get there. Is there any other questions?
Question is, how about giving the role of manager to different team members by rotation? What is your view on this thought?
Yeah, I don't understand enough. Can you explain again?
Suppose we have a team of 5 people, and we feel that somehow there is a need of management activity, and that's why we say we need a manager. Now, my suggestion is we give the role of manager to different team member by rotation.
Mhm.
What is your thought on this suggestion?
So, frankly, I don't know, because I don't understand what does the role of manager means. What does the role mean? In this model, you don't need a definition of who's the manager.
No, I am not talking about this model. I am talking about in general, because you mentioned in the beginning that a manager role creates confusion or conflict. But still, in reality, all the organizations do have a concept of team manager or uh, whatever role you can say. For example, we call it Scrum Master. His role is to manage that the process is followed. Now, in this example, if we give this role of Scrum Master to different team members by rotation, what is your view in this suggestion?
So, if I understand correctly, what you propose is that the blue, for example, will not be a person, but will be a role. And each time, so if let's say I don't know what, to schedule meetings is the role of the Scrum Master, then we can agree on it without deciding who is the Scrum Master now, and every week or month or I don't know when, change who the Scrum Master is while the ownership of scheduling meeting remains the same. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, that's what I mean. Yes.
Okay. Why not? I don't know. But what I'm saying, it doesn't have to be about management. Imagine the same thing for a QA, right? Or who does support? The role of the person who does support this week is to do this and this and this, right? So it doesn't have to be necessarily a
I
managerial thing.
I want to explain why this thought came to my mind.
Mhm.
Long time back in organization where I was working, we used to give the QA role by rotation to one of the team member, because the QA role can be best done when you understand the problem of the each team member.
Mhm.
It is not enough to define the process. You have to see what difficulties people have in following the process. So that is why this giving role by rotation will bring out the problems, and we will then find solution. That's
Yeah.
why I this thought came to my mind.
Wonderful. So what I'm saying is, again, I'll get back to where I started. I just have to see why it doesn't. Okay. Yeah. Here. You. It's about dichotomy. I can tell you yes and I can tell you no. Perhaps in your case it works, and in someone else's case it doesn't make sense. My thought is that if you feel that it resonates, then go for it. And if after that it fails, then you learn. And perhaps it will not fail. Again, we talk about dichotomy. Perhaps it will a little bit succeed and a little bit fail, and you will modify it to be different.
Thank you.
So, okay, but for me, coming back to the question as I understood it, to give ownership to a role and not to a person, why not? Only one thing that I didn't mention in using this tool, and then I'll get to your question about what happens when there's more than two. It's a tool, one, to define how we work now, but also a tool to define how do we want to work. So perhaps now I am, or the Scrum Master is the one who does, I don't know what, all of these. But we want the team in 3 months to take more ownership of part of the issues. So we can have two maps. This is how we work now, this is how we want to work, and revise these two. And another thing, if you have a contract, it's a living contract. So perhaps every month or two, go back to your contract and see, does it still hold water? Do we still respect it? Does it need to be modified? Are there some items that are obsolete, and are there some items that need to be added? And as for your question, so what happens when we have three people? What you can do is play it exactly in the same way. Okay, so let's say the first one said 5, and the second one said 4, and the third one said 4. Okay, and of course, I give you an example of 3, but it can be even more than that. And now you take the top 2. So if someone said 5 and someone else said 4, it means that we have too much. So if someone said, I will decide, but I'll consult you, and someone else said, we will agree together, then we have an imbalance. And if, in this example, someone said 5, and someone said 2, and someone said 2, then again we take the top two, 5 and 2. 5 and 2 means that someone said, we'll consult before I decide, and someone else said, I am not part of the consulting, I'll inquire. But everyone, in fact, said that. Okay, so because we take just the high one, means the other ones have even less involvement. And now we see that there's not enough ownership in the system. So again, to recap, the way to play this with more than 2 people is you vote, and then to see if we are in balance or not, we take the top 2. Now imagine that we are in balance. So someone said 5, someone said 3, and someone said 2. This is great, because it means someone said, we'll consult before I decide. So I will decide I need someone to consult with. Someone said, I'll advise you. And there's someone else who said, I will inquire after you decide. So now there's 2 people who will be in the decision process. And the third one will just inquire after the decision is made. Does it answer your question? Do you need more examples?
No, I have understood. Once the people take the role, whatever they feel like, and when you mix them, you are able to see what is really happening, and then probably the synergy will work for them to change for the benefit of the purpose. I have understood this way. Thank you.
Yeah. So, in fact, this is sort of the end of my talk. So, to finish off, I would love to hear from you 2 things. One, what do you think about the tool? And 2 is, did the poems resonate with you? Because as I'm really um, a big fan of this book, I'd love to know if the poems, what do the poems echo in you? What did you get out of them? Or any other questions that you have?
The poem
That,
Formless make me think a lot, and it makes me think a lot. How should I behave, or what behavior I expect from the people around me? So I like this Formless. Thank you.
Anyone else?
thank you, though. Thanks, though, for such an insightful session. Yes, this tool what has helping people to. It's one of the most creative thing what has come up
And
and is
just
helping to
one thing
facilitate.
that I forgot, you can download this tool, and perhaps I can even make this mural
Yeah,
accessible to you.
you can share the link over the chat. Meanwhile, there is one question. I think RC Goel has asked. I think that was the question. How about giving the role of a manager to different team members by rotation? I think that is answered to RC, sir. Right, sir?
Yeah, I think we talked
We
about
already
that.
settled. Thank you.
Yeah. So, though one question was just popping up in my mind. Now, in this remote setup, how challenging it is to enable people to be self-organized and to take autonomy, and how these type of tools can enable them.
So the only I don't see much of a difference, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
So like the form changed, but people found how to hide themselves before as well,
Mm-hmm.
and people stepped out of their comfort zone as well before, and
Mm-hmm.
they still do.
Mm-hmm.
So can you explain what makes this remote setting um, extremely different? It's different, but what makes it like strongly different than how we worked before?
So uh, before, at least, they used to be co-working, and there was a good scope to exchange when they are in co-working space. But now that connection is gone, right? So that is one thing what is coming in my mind.
Yeah. So I want to show you a tool, in fact, that I'm a big fan of, which is called Willow, that enables co-working. So in fact, one thing I agree with you, it doesn't have to do with trusting people, but it has to do with this sense of team, this understanding of who is where. Because currently, when we're working, we see each other only in meetings. And we see each other in meetings in a very strange space where we're all floating in nowhere. So I don't know where you are, and you don't know where I am. And there is this tool which, and frankly, I'm totally in love with, called Willow, where you can have an office space. And if you are now
Mm-hmm.
working, I don't know what, you can work alone. So you can have there's some spaces where there's a desk where you're alone, and so you just work, and then someone can ping you, right? Someone can say, yeah, as I'm only one here, I can't demo it. Oh, yeah, there is someone here, you see. So I can send a message to this guy. I can knock on the door and enter the meeting, and I can, in fact, I feel that I am in a real office. And
Mm-hmm.
if I collaborate with someone, you see, so now like if I sit and I'm at the desk with someone else, we can see each other. And not only this, we can see each other and collaborate on stuff as well. I don't know if it's perhaps here. Let's see. No. So I can open resources and like a mural or a mirror on the side and build something together while I see the person I'm talking to. But the advantage of a tool like this is that unlike a meeting, it's a space. So it's somewhere where I can just sit here all day, and if someone needs to, they ping me. And I see who's talking to whom, and I see who's sitting where, and different rooms can be dedicated to different projects. It brings this smell of team into our daily life. So I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, yeah, very much. Yes, yes, very much though. In fact, I think tools are getting more and more mature, and this is helping a lot in this particular remote setup.
Any other questions regarding
Yeah.
today?
So, so though another thing, uh, the thing is like people at the higher management or in the middle management who actually have the time constraint. How do you think that they can be involved or enabled towards transformation? And have you come across, I mean, any of in your experience where you, if you can give me one example where you were effectively able to implement your techniques with middle management and above?
Yeah, so this is another topic that I usually talk about, and I decided not to talk today, which is the meetings and time management. And I think that the higher you are in the hierarchy, the less time you have to think, because your agenda is being taken by meetings. And in a lot of meetings, you know, like there's this you saying this meeting could have been an email, right? So a lot of the meetings have less value than the time spent on them. So there's a lot of small things that you can do to help this. And like I think the most effective one that I found. So first of all, you asked me a real change in an organization. There was an organization where I recommended and they implemented something that they called No Meeting Friday. So
Mm-hmm.
on Friday, the organization is not allowed to have any large-scale meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And people, yeah, like you could almost physically hear how the organization breathes in relief. And currently, I was in an organization where it wasn't even my initiative. Someone blocked half a day for all developers, half a day twice a week, which is a no meeting block. And people were really happy. Now, on another level, I think that we are a little bit prisoners by defaults. When you schedule a meeting,
True.
even this talk is a 1 hour talk,
Yeah.
which means that there is no break unless someone finishes early ahead of time. But you could have said that each talk is a 55-minute talk,
Mm-hmm.
allowing people to go to the bathroom and to just to think about what they just heard, and not running from one meeting to the other. And currently, Google Calendar and Outlook allow you to set up your calendar. So when you book a meeting with someone, by default, it will not be 1 hour, it will be 50 minutes. And it will not be 30 minutes, but 25. And this will allow people to breathe, go to the bathroom, have a cup of coffee, think a little bit about what happened, and still be on time for the next meeting.
Absolutely. And we have taken care of that. In fact, this is a 50-minute meeting, and 10 minutes there is a break before we start with the next session.
Awesome. So that's it. It's a 50-minute meeting. Then we're over. It's over.
So we are happy that we are in sync, in fact, and the thought process,
Okay.
and we are at the right
Though,
in time. Yes,
though
start.
I have a thought to give. Nowadays, we are talking about servant leadership. And here, what I understand that such leader himself proactively searches around where he can help and contribute. So
First of
such
all,
leaders don't,
why do you say he when you talk of a leader?
he or
No,
she, it can be anybody.
I'm teasing you.
So purpose is that he or she does not require to have a meeting because he meets people and want to know how he can help. That is a good way.
So I don't know a good way. Like I'm reading now the book about the Toyota way, and in Toyota, what leaders do, they go in around the factory and see what's going on, and if they see something where they can help, they do that. So managers spend most of their day in the factory floor,
Yes,
not in.
that is
Thank,
what I meant.
Yeah,
thank you, sir.
I don't know. Like, again, really, I think that there's no magical solutions to things. It's if something works, then it's great.
I
And but
think that
if
that was an
it didn't
insightful
work,
one,
then have fun.
and we have come to the right in time. Our time has for the break, as you mentioned, and we are giving everyone a 5 minutes break. so that they can have this is a bio break. Everyone can freshen up and be back exactly at 5 o'clock, where we are starting with our next session. I would like to thanks once again, Dove, for such an insightful session. I hope our participants enjoyed and had their one good takeaways from your session. Thank you very much, Dove, once again, from on behalf of Agile Network India community.
Thank you.
So